Tennessee State head coach Eddie George. The team opened conference play last week, a loss at Tennessee Tech in a close game. This week, they're home. They're going to host Charleston Southern, second conference game of the season on Saturday evening. So, Coach, just some thoughts on your team, and we'll go to some questions.
Yeah, just going to touch on what happened last week. Got off to a slow start against a really good football team, down 14-0, and thought for a moment that they could have ran away with it, but got clawed and fought our way back into the game, and it was a hard physical battle between two good teams, and we just came up short on the end. We had chances to score, penalties got in the way of that. And to be honest with you, we got our butts kicked up front on the offensive line. I think they sacked the quarterback 7 times, had 0 net yards rushing. And that's not who we are. That's not how we're going to be built. And it exposed, where we need to get better at. There's still a long way to go in the season. A lot of ball to be played. I explained that to my team, and yet we have another team that we're going to see that's just as feisty, just as aggressive, and who we didn't fare well against last year because of the very same things. I'm looking at a stat for us. The last four. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Our last 4 OVC opponents that we've played. We've started off the games extremely slow, down 14-0 against Charleston Southern last year. EIU, going back to last year, I'm talking about Eastern Illinois, 14-0. Tennessee Tech, 21-0. Tennessee Tech last week, 14-0, all in the first quarter. So that's a telltale sign of where we have to come out with a higher sense of urgency, get stops, get some breaks. Why don't we score for a change and get ahead and play from that position? So it's something that needs to be addressed. We're going to figure it out, whether it's in our routine, whether it's in our approach, our practice, but it's something that we've got to address moving forward.
All right, Coach, we'll go to questions. We'll go Mike first and then Brandon. Go ahead, Mike.
Eddie, I've got 2 questions. You and I talked after the game, and you mentioned possibly tweaking the running game. What would that involve? What would that be? Personnel, scheme? What would that include?
It would include running it intentionally more. I think there are times when we have RPOs on it, and that turns into a pass play, and based off of a look that you get. And sometimes you got to just be intentional about running the football. It's been something that I've been looking at closely for the entire year. When we've had success offensively, our backs have touched the ball in some capacity, and that has to happen. So from a play calling standpoint, from a schematic standpoint, and from an execution standpoint, that needs to occur. I felt like we were too many times we were caught in the backfield, tackles for loss, TFLs. And that doesn't help our passing attack, and it certainly doesn't help. It goes hand in hand with the amount of times that Draylen was sacked or touched last week because of our inability to be aggressive, our inability to establish positive yards on first and second down. So we've got to be able to win there. So we're looking at it all. We've got to be, again, more intentional about running the football without an RPO tag to it.
Okay. And my second question, one of the bright spots last week was Karate Benson. We've seen flashes of karate. Can you talk about him and his skill set, which really I've been impressed by since he's been here? Just seems to need a little bit more consistency from there.
Yeah, karate, really going back to last year, has the prototype. He's a tall, big kid, can run, can catch the 50-50 ball for us. And we've got to do a better job of getting him the ball. He was targeted 15 times last week, which is significant. But we've seen when we get the ball in his hands, he's capable of doing some good things with it. And that's going to take time. And you got to understand, too, that this is a dual offense yet again. And we're still working out the kinks, working out the chemistry, finding out who does what well, how to get them in position to be successful. And karate definitely came on for us with that. Now we just got to marry that with a balanced attack and try to get zero the ball, because you saw that he's very consistent in terms of his has been consistent catching the football and so forth. And I'll say this, the reason he's having so much success is because of how he's worked in practice. He has taken his practice habits to a new, totally different level, finishing his routes, finishing blocks, finishing his runs after catch. And it's translated onto the field, and you can see it grow. And I think guys are seeing that, man, if I'm working in practice, treating practice like a game, getting game reps, you're having more success on the field on game day. So that's what we're seeing. And we just have to encourage everybody to practice that way, so we can be more consistent and efficient in our pass game and our run game, and certainly overall as a team holistically.
Thanks, Eddie. I'll see you this afternoon.
All right, Mike.
Brandon, you're up.
Okay. I'm already on mute. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, Brandon, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. Good. Kind of wanted to talk about the run game from a defensive standpoint. Tech was kind of able to impose their will on that side of the ball and run for over 200 yards. And knowing, excuse me, that the footage is out there, have you talked to your team in terms of what, people are seeing that as a possible way to attack your defense, and what has been your message going to be from your team going forward as you game prep for Charleston Southern, because they like I said, the tape is out there and they're going to look to try to replicate what Tech did.
Well, yeah. On paper, they had over 200 yards rushing. They had a couple of explosives. I think a 70-yard run and a 30-yard run to add to that. But when you look at the total game, I think we did a nice job of settling down and didn't give up those big runs. They got it in chunks. They got it in, on 3rd down and 15, and we're going to address those things. It wasn't anything physically that we weren't physical. They weren't pushing us around. It was a miss gap here. A guy did not fit in the right gap in certain areas. So it's more assignment driven than anything else. And I think that we're going to get that corrected. Listen, we pride ourselves on stopping the run and being able to run the football. And we didn't do that in this particular game. That's how you have to win in the OVC. You've got to be able to run the football and stop the run at some point. And that's how this division is built, and these teams are built this way. So we're going to continue to harp on that. That's nothing that's not new, that isn't new to us. We understand what we have to do. We've emphasized that in the off season. We just have to do a better job of executing and putting our kids in the best position to be successful. And I'll just, tip my hat off to Tennessee Tech. They're very good up front on both sides of the ball. I was very impressed by their offensive line and their defensive line, how they were able to really get off blocks and make plays. It was more of an effort thing than anything else. So I was relatively impressed. I think we learned a lesson there.
Okay. And you kind of referenced it in your initial comments. You were talking about the team kind of getting off to a slow start in their past few OVC games. Do you think once you kind of stumble out of the gates, do you think it's a guys have a tend to kind of press or try to do too much to try to get it all back at once, so to speak, and that kind of compounds things? Or
well, here's the thing, Brandon. In out of those 4 games that we started off slow, the last 4, one game got out of hand. That was Tennessee Tech last year, our very last game, and we wound up losing, I think, 35 or 42-0. But in of those 3 matches, we've come back. We've shown that we made it a game. Now we've got to finish it. We got to find ways to make plays. We had a chance to, beat Charleston Southern last year. They got us on a blitz on a 3rd down. They fumbled the ball, they scooped, flipped the field, and they wind up, winning 34-21 or 17, something like that. I can't remember the final score. The same thing with EIU. We had a chance to win that one. A fumbled punt in our own end, and that turned the game around. Was a turnover. And certainly last week, we had a chance to win. It was a penalty on a play that is subjective in terms of alignment being downfield, and that takes us out of a possibility of scoring a touchdown, or certainly good field goal range for Jimmy. He misses the field goal, and then we're down by 3 with a minute and something left, and we throw a pick 6. So we're in these games. We know how to come back and fight back in these games. But for once, let's put pressure on them to use that energy to come back. I think it's about time for us to see that come out with a little bit more sense of urgency. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the pregame meal. Maybe it's the night before. Maybe it's our sense of urgency when we come off the bus. Maybe it's arriving a little bit later. I have to look at all aspects in terms of why we are not coming out with that sense of urgency in these ball games, understanding the importance and the magnitude of these games. So there's a lot that we're going to look at, and it's going to be addressed.
Okay. Do I have time for one quick one? One more? Okay. And then touching on what you just brought up, would you say, I guess, lost my train of thought.
Okay. It happens.
It happens to the best of us. Had it in my head. It just left me.
Was it anything to do with the slow start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my mind was running faster than my brain could catch up. But looking at your time and as the helm of the program, we can see that it's trending in the right direction. Would you say that kind of figuring out how to win some of these games, like I said, because you are in slow starts, despite that, would you say that's kind of the last hurdle that you get over to really turn the corner of the program? Because we can see it to get over that hump, so to speak.
Well, Brandon, you like to think that's the last hurdle, but there's always another hurdle that you have to overcome. We're competing, and that's a good thing. And at some point in time, I love the saying that you stick around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut sooner or later. So we stay in these ball games. Sooner or later, the ball's going to bounce our way. We're going to get some favor go our way. We're going to start to believe that, hey, we can come from behind. We can play from behind. We can play ahead. I believe we certainly can play ahead. But in the OVC, you can't be undisciplined. You can't turn the ball over. You've got to play fundamentally sound football and trusting your technique. You can't get away with certain things against these type of teams. So that's why we emphasize the small things, the habits. So we just have to keep chopping wood. I think we're getting close. We're getting close. And you think about it this way: we gave up 7 sacks. We threw the ball fairly well in certain situations. We were horrific on third down. We had 0 net yards rushing, yet we still had a chance to win the ball game in the end.
Absolutely.
So, you look at those stats, you would think, okay, this team got beat 35-0, but we were very competitive in that regard. So we clean those things up. We address those things. We attack it. Good things is bound to happen. So I firmly believe that, and that's what we're going to talk about. Moving forward, how do we break through to that next level, and how do we do it collectively? And it may not be anything necessarily on the field, but in terms of our preparation throughout the week, that may be tweaked. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, good luck this weekend, Coach, and not only this week, but as we move through the rest of the season.
All right, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Coach, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.